I'll see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun, destroy the ring of power.
Hey all you Lord of the Rings fans, welcome back to the channel. I am Roman Daisel, or as it's correctly pronounced, Romantikill. Today we're going back into Middle-earth role-playing, and we're going to delve into Valar Maiar. This is a people's source book released in 1993. It's 2006 of the series. This is the second edition. In the 90s when they revamped it with a nice background. The cover art is by Agnes McBride. You can see Saruman with his Palantiri in there. It's a pretty good picture, one of Agnes McBride's better works. Now, this is pretty much a remake of the 1986 Lords of Middle-earth Volume 1. The only difference between these two books really is that they don't have the elves in it. And they put a few more details, but not very many. So it's basically the same book. If you have Lord of the Rings Volume 1, you really don't need the new second edition, other than for a collector's sake. But anyway, let's go down to the table and check it out. Alright, so back to the table we are. Just by looking at the front cover again. Agnes McBride. It's a pretty decent work. You've got Saruman sitting in front of the Palantiri. And I don't know if that's supposed to be Grima Wormtongue in the back. Or just somebody who's trying to steal something. Or whatnot. But it's a pretty good picture. Now, nothing on the inside cover. We got some contents, credits, introduction. Now, they include stats for not just Middle-earth role-playing, but also for Rolemaster and the Lord of the Rings adventure game system, which they were developing for younger players, for kids, to try and get them into it. Now, like I said, this is a reprint of an earlier module, Lords of Middle-earth, Volume 1. ICE was going in the direction, and they did release a book for the elves, but they never got one done for the men, dwarves, hobbits, and whatnot. They never got that far in their production, which kind of sucks. It would have been really cool if they went back, if they had gotten the other Lords of Middle-earth completed, but they never did. So anyway, we're going with the Ainur overview. So you got the Valar, the Maiar, the chain of guardianship from Arud, the Valar, the Maiar to the Free Peoples. I'm not going through every little thing just because it takes forever, and most of it has already been done. You have the history of the Ainur, from the origin of evil all the way to the Wizard's Embassy and the afterword. So there's nothing new there. A lot of backstory. The Silmarillion is a better source for it. What I don't like, they changed the artwork, and I really don't like the artwork they came up with. So Kevin Burrows, Liz Danforth, and Stefan Peregrine were the interior art designers. Danforth, she's done stuff before for them, but I don't like her artwork. The artwork that's in this book, it just doesn't really mesh, and I think they could have got some better. They came up with some better artwork. That's going to be a common theme here. Then they go into the Valar themselves, into their nature as beings, the society, where they reside in Valinor, their powers, so a general description of all their powers, relationships. So, for example, Manwë is the king of the Valar. He's the husband of Varda, brother of Melkor. He's associated with the air, sky, wind, weather, sight, empathy, and wisdom. You know, those kind of things. Aul is the maker, crafts, creativity, insight, materiality. And he's the smith, as well as the spell Yavanna. Kind of takes from Greek mythology. Like Hephaestus was the smith of the gods, but his wife was Aphrodite, which is kind of the same idea. The Valar and religion. So they don't want to be mistaken as deities, but that tends to happen, especially in managed cultures. monotheism, and the reverence of Eru. That's what they strive for. Religion of and darkness, and the multiplicity of religions. Yep, Dunedain and all the religions. So it gives a backstory of all that. Then it goes into the Valar descriptions. Aul. I really don't like this artwork. I have no idea what that is. Now they give his general backstory and his characteristics. Again, they have Aul in Merp, Aul in Rolemaster, and then Aul in Lord of the Rings adventure game. The difference between Merp calls him a mage, while Rolemaster would call him an alchemist. And in Lord of the Rings adventure game, he's a bard. Not sure how he's a bard. I would more consider him an alchemist than anything else, or just a smith. But that's what it is, profession-wise. Principal items, principal powers. So you get and then you go on to the next one. Est, the wife of Ermo himself. Tells you where their home is, what their level is. So these are all massive levels. You're never going to meet a Valar in Middle-earth role-playing. They don't have first age adventures. So if you were to transport something into the first age, you're not likely to meet half these characters, even still. Yeah, Melkor Morgoth, though it doesn't give his stats there later. Nessa Nina. Arom, that's the other one I was trying to think of. So in Middle-earth role-playing, if you go to Middle-earth, you're most likely to meet up with Arom of anyone of the Valar, the Great Valar. Maybe Olmo along the waterways. He might speak to you. And Arom the Huntsman is the other one. During the War of Wrath, you might meet Tolkas. But again, you're not going to meet these people. Varda is the most powerful of the females, and the most the elves love. Again, you're not going to meet her, but you'll see her. Only in the stars will you look at her. So that's the problem with this book. It's just something to read. It's not really useful in terms of the Valar. Now, when you go to the Maiar, the lesser angels, so to speak, you're going to meet more of them within Middle-earth. You'll meet Tom Bombadil. You'll meet the 5 wizards. First stage adventure, you're going to meet Melian. Luthien, as she's a half. It gives a brief description of their powers. There's subgroups. There's elemental and thematic. So elemental Maiar incarnate fire, water, earth, light, and air. Aryan and the Balrogs are the most famous of the fire spirits, while Os, Union, the river woman, and Goldenberry were the best known of the water spirits. That's the other one you meet, Goldenberry. Ilmare embodied light. Erwain ben Tom Bombadil was earth spirit, tied to the heart of Middle-earth. Karahadras might be another Maiar, because the mountain over top of Moria could be considered an earth spirit as well. And then it gives a description of all the various Maiar. Wendell, who was Radagast. Elantor became one of the blue wizards. Eonwy, the herald, he's probably the most powerful of the Maiar, and one you'll meet once in the first age of the War of Wrath. He'll be at the end. So it is possible. Kurumo, who is Saruman. Now they have the Balrog of Moria as Felagrog, a fire spirit. Goldenberry. Luthien, she's given a quick description, but no stats. They have another Balrog there. Melian, who is of course Luthien's mother, and is prominent in the first stage. So if you could get into a first stage adventure, you would meet her. Probably. Aloran, who is Gandalf. Os, or Osse. I can't pronounce those words with the life of me. Sauron, of course, is someone you probably could meet in the first, second, and not so much the third age. If you met Sauron in the third age, it wouldn't go very well for you. Tilion, who represents the moon. Tom Bombadil. Uinen, who the Númenóreans love. They ask for her grace and blessing to escape Os's wrath. Right. And then it goes into their stats again. So very quickly going through that. There's no time to go through each one individually. Again, you're only going to meet a handful of them, and this is the main ones you're going to meet, the Ishtari, the wizards. If you're in northwestern Middle-earth, especially the Shire Eriador, the Shire, you're going to meet Gandalf the Grey. The odds are pretty good. You're more likely to meet Gandalf than you would meet Tom Bombadil. So the Ishtar, their mission, there's 5 of them. They go across. They're sent by the Valar to combat Sauron, because the Valar are afraid to wreck Middle-earth a 3rd time. Or a 4th time, or however many times you want to look at it. The last one was the downfall of Numenor, and the earth changed and the seas were bent. So you kind of go from the flat earth theory to the globe theory, the round earth theory. Only the elves can follow the straight line. And then it has their roots. So each wizard is, of course, linked to a certain Valar. Saruman, his patron, was Aul. He was one of their people. Gandalf was from Manwë. Alatar was from Aron. Alatar was from Arom. Or Arome. I can never pronounce the accents on there. Palando was with Mandos. Radagast was from Yavanna. So that's their roots. Using Ishtari in your fantasy game. The guises of the emissary, the Ishtari experience levels. So they have different levels because they're cloaked as old men, and they're not supposed to show their power. So they're not. They lessen in a sense to hide them, disguise them, but really they're very powerful in their own right. Then it gives the descriptions. I love reading these, especially the 2 blue wizards who you know almost nothing about. And Middle-earth role-playing tries to flesh them out a bit more. Though they think that their mission failed, that they succumbed to the problems of Middle-earth, and either became rivals of Sauron in the east, just like Saruman did in the west. Only Gandalf really achieved his goal. Radagast became too enamored with the plants and animals of Middle-earth to really be effective. And the first one you get is Alatar, who was one of the 2 blue wizards. You never actually meet him, you just hear a reference of how they went to the Far East. And he was associated with Arom the Huntsman, which is one of the reasons why he went to the Far East. And he took his friend Palando, who was with the Halls of Mandos, with him. Supposedly. That's the story we get. But in the end, he didn't complete his mission and failed, and no one knows what happened to him. Gandalf, of course, is the main wizard in the end. He is entrusted with a Ring of Power, which is a sign of deep respect and trust within the elven community who were hiding them from Sauron. And the fact that Gandalf was wandering around with this ring at all times once he received it, for well nigh over 1,500 years, wandering around Middle-earth with it on. It's definitely an honor for Gandalf, and it helps him in his purpose. Of course, he is associated with Manwë, and Saruman probably learned about it and really hated it, made him jealous, that considering he was supposed to be the strongest and the most. So Saruman was closest in thought to Sauron because both him and Sauron had been pupils of Aul. But both were unfortunately corrupted. So Gandalf has more stats, more stuff, obviously, because more is known about him. Palando is, of course, the second of the blue wizards. And he went to the east. Not much is known about him. Though, given that he was one of Mandos' folk, he probably would have been, kind of like he could tell you your fortune, see inside your soul, which would have unnerved a lot of people, and he might have been set up as a god. Out in the Far East, who knows? No one knows what happened to these guys, unfortunately. It would have been nice to know, but we do know that he failed and never went back to the Far West. It is possible that him and Alatar were killed in their service, and that their spirits did go back to Valinor and never returned. So we really don't know what happened to these 2. Radagast, he failed in his mission, but he remained behind in Middle-earth, probably until the end of days. He became too enamored with the beasts and trees and other. So Radagast served a purpose, but he failed eventually in his goal. In his own way, he tried to undo Sauron's will. He would be considered the weakest of the five, maybe, and he was closely tied to Yavanna. Him and Saruman were supposed to be companions, but Saruman only took Radagast because Aul and Yavanna were together. Then, of course, Saruman the White, who was supposed to be the head of the council. How often the five wizards ever got together once they arrived in Middle-earth is debatable. Probably never. Though they might have at first and talked about what direction they should take. Saruman was of the people of Aul and was closest in mind to Sauron. And because he could fathom Sauron's mind, Saruman was the logical choice. Saruman ultimately failed in his goal, and as punishment, when he was killed, he was not allowed to return to Valinor. His spirit became nothing. A very tragic way to go, but he serves him right for being such an a-hole. Gives us stats from when he's Saruman the White, Saruman the many-colored, Sharky, and all that stuff. Now we get to the fun stuff. The fallen Ainur, Morgoth. Again, he looks like King Kong or Donkey Kong. I have no idea what these things are that are tied around his huge axe here. Makes no sense at all. The artwork sucks in this book, like I've said many times. It's got his tale, his nature, his minions, his works, his legacy, his stats. He's very powerful, but he decreases over time, I believe. Then we have Sauron. Sauron is one of the main villains you could possibly meet in the first age, second age. Third age, you'd only meet the semblance, the shadow of Sauron, if you are unlucky enough to encounter him. The first part of the second age, you might encounter him as Atanatar, the Lord of Gifts. In the first age, you wouldn't want to meet him because he could be a werewolf, a vampire. He could be a lot of terrible things. He wasn't a nice guy. In the second age, in the beginning, he seemed fair. Right up until the downfall of Numenor, until he lost the ability to weave a fair shape. So he's a very powerful entity in his own right. Now again, this artwork looks better than the Morgoth one, but again, I don't understand all these little things. It's just ridiculous. I don't know what style they were trying to come up with, but it's a very terrible style. This one as the Lord of Gifts, and it gives through his whole history with the ring making and all that stuff. The 9 ring rafts, the downfall of Numenor. So you have his levels. So he can be either a level 180 or a 360, depending if he has the one ring. If he doesn't have the one ring, he's a 180. There he would be appearing as in the late second age, after the downfall of Numenor, up until the overthrow, when the ring is cut from his finger on Mount Doom. I don't know what shape he takes in the third age. It just is a lidless eye of malice. He's more of a shadow than anything else that can't take physical form yet. He would need the ring. Then we get to the Valar, the Balrogs. Now Tolkien is pretty ambiguous about this. He says the number could be anywhere from thousands to 7. I think in the final days when his last writings he had 7, but he didn't name them. He only named 1, and that's Gothmog. The Balrog of Moria is never named, but we do know that Ecthelion killed Gothmog, and Glorfindel, a different Glorfindel, killed a Balrog during the retreat from Gondolin. So with the Balrog there, that would be 3 of the 7. So there should be 4 more running around, but who knows? I tend to believe there could be a couple of dozen of these things, but then they got killed over time in all the battles, and the War of Wrath would have wiped them out. So it's got the stats for the Balrog, his special powers, principal items. Then we go into Gothmog. He kind of looks like Morgoth, the whole Donkey Kong bit, or King Kong, whatever you want to look at it. I like reading through these. Lungorathan is another one they name, but I don't think his name ever appears in Lord of the Ring in any of Tolkien's work. So this is a Merp creation. And he's supposed to be a white one. Then we have Muar, who is supposed to be another Balrog who fled to the far, far east and becomes a nemesis to the dwarves of Rurik in in the far mountains of the east. The furthest east you could go almost. Lords of Middle-earth Volume 3 has a really good section on that. It's too bad Merp never got to that far. They had the storyline, they had some plots laid out, but they never put it into a campaign book format. And it really sucks. It looks like he's from Planet of the Apes, one of the older apes. So Moir is only a level 33 Balrog. 30 or 54 depending. So he's not a very powerful one. So it makes me think that there were 7. My belief is that there were 7 powerful Balrogs, and then there was probably anywhere from a couple of dozen to 100 lesser Balrogs. Then we come to the last one, Ungoliant, who took the form of the spider. She's the spirit of the void, the embodiment of destruction. Her story is well known. She's the one who sucked the life out of the 2 trees with Morgoth's aid, and then fled to Middle-earth, and then Morgoth betrayed her in the end, and his Balrogs came and helped him. No one knows where she went after that. Not something you want to meet in a dark night. So she'd look more like a spider than anything else. So if you got arachnophobia, you definitely don't want to meet that, but you never do. Ainur and gaming. So they mentioned that you're never likely to come across any of these people in Middle-earth, which is a shame, except for the evil ones. Game Master tips. You can create your own Ainur characters. That's kind of cool. You could create your own. I like that. Never tried it, but maybe one day. Equipment variants. Okay, appendices, citations, glossary, and then finally a Middle-earth role-playing price guide. All right, so that was our look at Valar Maiar. Now, as a source book, it's a great book to have. Like I said, if you already have the 86th edition, you really don't need this one. I think I only paid, $20 for this back in the day? Maybe less. It's been a long time. The price listing at the back has US dollars, and I'm in Canada, so can't really go by that. The only thing I didn't like about the book itself is the artwork. It was terrible artwork inside. They should have just let Ainur probably do the artwork for the interior, but it probably would have cost them too much. Middle-earth role-playing or nice Iron Crown Enterprises at the time were in a financial crunch, and they were really scrambling to do whatever they could cheaply. Now, unfortunately, they did not finish the entire Lords of Middle-earth series. They did the Elves, but they never got to volumes 2 and 3. But overall, it is an interesting read as a source book. I like reading it. And the fact that you can create your own Ainur, your own Maiar, or even Valar if you wanted to, or a fallen one, is kind of cool. I'm going to have to try it next time I play. Whenever that is. But anyway, all you Lord of the Rings fans out there, and Middle-earth role-playing fans out there, let me know what you guys think of the book and the artwork involved. Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, I am Roman Daisel. I'm out of here.
Shadow